Jake Martinez, a 24-year-old graphic designer from Austin, Texas, is trying to rebuild his life after a messy breakup with Emma Rodriguez, his college girlfriend of 3 years. After blocking him on all social media platforms 6 months ago, Emma suddenly starts commenting, "I miss you," on every single one of his posts under fake accounts. As Jake navigates this confusing digital stalking while building a promising new relationship with Sarah, a local coffee shop owner, he must confront unresolved feelings, learn to set boundaries, and decide whether some chapters are better left closed. The story explores modern relationships, digital boundaries, social media's impact on healing, and the complexity of moving forward when the past refuses to stay buried. The Austin morning sun filtered through the blinds of Jake Martinez's small apartment on East 6th Street, casting long shadows across his cluttered desk, where 3 monitors displayed his latest graphic design project. The familiar hum of traffic and distant music from the honky-tonks below created the soundtrack he'd grown accustomed to over the past 6 months since moving to this studio apartment. It wasn't much, but it was his, a fresh start after everything fell apart. Jake stretched his arms above his head, feeling the familiar ache in his shoulders from hunching over his computer for hours. The clock in the corner of his screen read 8:47 a.m., and he'd already been working for 2 hours. Sleep had become elusive lately, so he'd learned to channel his restless energy into his freelance design work. The latest project, a rebranding package for a local brewery, was due by noon, and perfectionism had always been both his greatest asset and his biggest curse. His phone buzzed against the wooden desk, and without looking, he knew it would be another Instagram notification. Social media had become his lifeline to the outside world, and ironically, his biggest source of anxiety. Jake had built a modest following showcasing his design work, and the steady stream of likes and comments provided validation he hadn't realized he desperately needed. The notification was from his latest post, a time-lapse video of him creating a vintage-inspired logo design. The comments were the usual mix of fire emojis, compliments from fellow designers, and questions about his process. But as he scrolled through them, one comment made his blood run cold. "I miss you," posted by an account called A Sunshine Dreamer, 2024. The profile picture was a generic sunset photo, and the account had 0 followers, 0 following, and no posts. Jake's hands trembled slightly as he clicked on the profile. It had been created yesterday. His mind immediately went to the place he'd been trying to avoid for months, Emma. They'd been together for 3 years, meeting during their sophomore year at UT Austin. She was studying journalism. He was in art school, and they'd bonded over late-night coffee runs and shared dreams of creative careers. Emma Rodriguez was everything Jake thought he wanted: ambitious, beautiful, passionate about social justice, with an infectious laugh that could light up any room. She had this way of making him feel like the most important person in the world when she focused her attention on him. But Emma also had a darker side that took Jake too long to recognize. She was possessive, checking his phone regularly, demanding to know where he was at all times, and flying into jealous rages over interactions with female classmates or clients. What started as endearing concern gradually evolved into suffocating control. She would go through his social media accounts, demanding explanations for every like or comment from other women. She made him delete female friends from his contacts and would show up unannounced at his workplace or social gatherings. The breaking point came 8 months ago during a particularly volatile argument about Jake's growing freelance business. Emma had accused him of prioritizing work over their relationship, of caring more about random clients than her feelings. When Jake tried to explain that his career was important to his future, their future, she had thrown his laptop across the room, cracking the screen and destroying weeks of work. "You'll never find anyone who loves you like I do," she had screamed through tears. "No one will ever put up with your obsessive perfectionism and social awkwardness like I have." Those words had cut deep because they contained just enough truth to lodge themselves in Jake's psyche. He was a perfectionist, sometimes to a fault. He did struggle in social situations, preferring the comfort of his computer screen to crowded parties or networking events. But he'd thought those were things Emma loved about him, not tolerated. The breakup was messy and public. Emma had posted long, emotional Instagram stories about how Jake had abandoned her, painting herself as the victim of his ambition and coldness. She'd sent screenshots of their private conversations to mutual friends, trying to rally support for her version of events. When Jake had finally worked up the courage to ask her to stop, she'd blocked him on every platform: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, even LinkedIn. The digital silence was both a relief and a torture. For weeks after the blocking, Jake found himself typing her name into search bars, only to be met with a stark message: user not found. It was as if 3 years of their shared life had been digitally erased. He'd lost not just Emma, but access to photos of their trips together, memories captured in posts and stories, mutual friends who had sided with her dramatic narrative. Now, staring at this obviously fake account commenting on his post, Jake felt that familiar knot forming in his stomach. He deleted the comment immediately and blocked the profile. But the damage was done. The careful emotional equilibrium he'd spent months building was suddenly shaky. His phone rang, startling him from his spiraling thoughts. The caller ID showed Sarah with a little heart emoji he'd added last week during a moment of optimism. "Hey, morning person." Sarah's voice was warm and slightly raspy, like she'd just woken up. "I know you're probably already 3 cups of coffee deep and designing something amazing, but I wanted to check if you're still coming to help with the new menu design today." Sarah Kim owned Grind Coffee, a cozy little shop in South Austin that had become Jake's regular workspace over the past 2 months. She was 26, had moved to Austin from Portland 3 years ago, with dreams of creating a community space that served incredible coffee and supported local artists. Her shop walls rotated monthly with work from different local creatives, and she'd approached Jake about designing her new seasonal menu after admiring his laptop stickers during his daily visits. What started as a professional collaboration had slowly evolved into something that felt like it might be more. Sarah was everything Emma wasn't: calm, supportive of his work, secure in herself, and refreshingly drama-free. She had short black hair with purple highlights that changed monthly, wore vintage band t-shirts, and had a laugh that was quieter than Emma's, but somehow warmer. "Yeah, absolutely," Jake replied, trying to shake off the lingering unease from the mysterious comment. "I'll be there around 11. I just need to finish up this brewery project first." "Perfect. I'll have your usual ready. Large cold brew, oat milk, extra shot, no sugar, and maybe some of those blueberry scones you pretend you don't love." Jake found himself smiling for the first time that morning. "I don't pretend. I just maintain plausible deniability." "Sure you do. See you soon, Jake." As he hung up, Jake tried to focus on the warmth in Sarah's voice, the normalcy of their easy banter, the promise of a day spent in her bright, plant-filled coffee shop working on a project that excited him. But Emma's digital ghost had been summoned, and he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The walk to Grind Coffee normally took Jake 15 minutes through the tree-lined streets of South Austin, but today he found himself taking the long route, needing extra time to clear his head. The Texas heat was already building despite it being only 10:30 a.m., and the familiar sounds of the city, food trucks firing up their grills, the distant hum of I-35, dogs barking in fenced yards, usually helped calm his anxiety. Today, however, his mind kept circling back to that comment. Jake pulled out his phone and opened Instagram again, checking his notifications obsessively. 3 new likes, a comment from another designer asking about his process, and a DM from a potential client. Nothing from As Sunshine Dreamer 2024, but that didn't make him feel any better. He found himself scrolling through his recent posts, looking for any other suspicious comments he might have missed. The brewery logo post from 2 days ago had 47 likes and 12 comments, all legitimate. The behind-the-scenes story he'd posted yesterday showing his coffee-stained sketchbook had gotten good engagement from his small but dedicated following. Everything seemed normal, which somehow made the single "I miss you" comment feel even more ominous. As he turned onto South Lamar, Jake's phone buzzed with a text from his roommate from college, Marcus. Dude, weird question, but did you see Emma at Whole Foods yesterday? Could have sworn I saw her in the parking lot, but when I looked again, she was gone. Probably just someone who looked like her. Jake stopped walking, his stomach dropping. Marcus lived in North Austin, nowhere near Jake's neighborhood. If Emma had been at the Whole Foods on South Lamar, the one Jake shopped at twice a week, it wouldn't be a coincidence. His hands shook slightly as he typed back. What time? What was she wearing? Around 2 p.m. maybe. Dark hair in a ponytail, wearing one of those oversized UT hoodies. But honestly, man, could have been anyone. You know how it is when someone's on your mind. Jake knew Marcus was trying to be reassuring, but the description was exactly what Emma used to wear on her lazy days. That hoodie had been his originally, a faded burnt orange pullover from the campus bookstore that she'd claimed during their first winter together and never given back. Grind Coffee sat on the corner of a converted house that Sarah had painted sage green with white trim. Hanging plants cascaded from the wraparound porch, and the hand-painted sign Jake had helped her design last month swayed gently in the morning breeze. Through the large windows, he could see Sarah behind the counter, her purple highlighted hair catching the light as she worked the espresso machine. The bell above the door chimed as Jake entered, and Sarah looked up with a smile that temporarily pushed away his anxiety. The shop smelled like fresh coffee beans and the lavender candles Sarah burned near the reading nook in the corner. Indie folk music played softly from vintage speakers, and about half the tables were occupied by laptops and textbooks, the usual mix of remote workers and UT students. Right on time, Sarah said, already pouring his cold brew. You look a little stressed, though. Everything okay? Jake had been debating whether to tell Sarah about the comment, but looking at her concerned expression, he realized he wanted to talk about it. Sarah had a way of putting things in perspective without making him feel dramatic or paranoid. It's probably nothing, he started, accepting the coffee gratefully. But I got this weird comment on Instagram this morning, from what's obviously a fake account. Sarah raised an eyebrow as she wiped down the counter. Weird how? Just, I miss you. Posted by an account with no followers created yesterday. Generic sunset profile picture. Jake took a long sip of his cold brew, the caffeine helping steady his nerves slightly. And Marcus thinks he might have seen my ex at the Whole Foods near my place yesterday. Ah, Sarah's expression shifted to one of understanding. The ex who blocked you on everything? Jake had told Sarah about Emma in general terms during one of their late-night conversations last week, when the coffee shop was empty and they'd found themselves talking about past relationships. He'd kept it brief, not wanting to seem like he was still hung up on his ex, but Sarah was perceptive enough to read between the lines. Emma, yeah, it's just the timing feels too coincidental, you know? She blocks me for months, complete radio silence, and now suddenly there's a fake account commenting on my stuff, and maybe she's shopping near my apartment. Sarah leaned against the counter, her dark eyes thoughtful. Could be coincidence. Austin's not that big, and Whole Foods is pretty central, but... She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. How did things end exactly? You mentioned it was messy. Jake found himself telling Sarah more than he'd planned. About Emma's possessiveness, the fighting, the laptop incident, the dramatic social media campaign afterward. Sarah listened without judgment, occasionally nodding or asking clarifying questions. When other customers came in, she served them efficiently, but returned her attention to Jake, making him feel heard in a way that was both comforting and unfamiliar. She sounds like she was really struggling with some stuff, Sarah said finally. That level of possessiveness usually comes from somewhere deeper than just relationship issues. Yeah, I know. And I tried to be understanding, but... Jake trailed off, realizing he was still carrying guilt about how things had ended. I keep wondering if I could have handled it better somehow. Jake. Sarah's voice was gentle but firm. You can't set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. It sounds like you tried to make it work for a long time. Before Jake could respond, his phone buzzed with another Instagram notification. His heart rate spiked as he opened the app, but it was just another legitimate comment on his brewery post. Still, the interruption reminded him why he was feeling so on edge. The thing is, he continued, I was finally starting to feel like I was moving forward, you know? This thing with you, my work picking up, finding my own space, and now I feel like she's trying to crawl back into my head." Sarah was quiet for a moment, then reached across the counter and briefly touched his hand. Maybe that's exactly why it's happening now. Some people can't stand to see their exes doing better without them. The simple contact sent warmth up Jake's arm, and he realized how much he'd grown to care about Sarah's opinion, her presence, the easy way she made him feel normal and valued. The thought of Emma's digital interference, potentially ruining this budding relationship, made him feel protective in a way he hadn't expected. "So what do you think I should do?" he asked. "Document everything," Sarah said practically. "Screenshot the comments before you delete them. Keep a record of when and where you see her or think you see her. Don't engage, but don't ignore it either. If it escalates, you'll want evidence." Jake nodded, appreciating Sarah's straightforward approach. No drama, no emotional manipulation, just practical advice delivered with genuine concern. "And Jake?" Sarah added with a small smile. "Don't let her steal your peace. You've worked too hard to get where you are." As if summoned by their conversation, Jake's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a comment on his sketchbook post from yesterday. "I miss you," from a different account. A lonely BR's heart aches. Jake showed Sarah the screen, and her expression hardened slightly. "Okay," she said. "That's definitely not a coincidence." Over the next week, the comments multiplied like digital weeds. Every post Jake made, whether it was work-related content, a photo of his morning coffee, or a simple sunset from his apartment balcony, received the same 3-word message from increasingly creative fake accounts. "Missing you forever. Remember us 2021, your biggest mistake." Each profile was barely 24 hours old. Each had the same generic aesthetic photos, and each delivered the same haunting refrain: "I miss you." Jake had started screenshotting everything, creating a folder on his phone labeled Evidence that grew heavier each day. Sarah had been right about documentation, but seeing the harassment laid out chronologically made it feel more real and more unsettling. What had started as an annoying mystery was becoming a pattern of genuine digital stalking. The psychological impact was wearing on him. Jake found himself checking his notifications obsessively, his stomach clenching each time his phone buzzed. He'd started limiting his posts, then second-guessing that decision because his Instagram presence was crucial for his freelance business. Emma was succeeding in getting back into his head, and they both knew it. Tuesday afternoon found Jake at Grind Coffee again, ostensibly working on a logo design for a local yoga studio, but mostly staring at his laptop screen while his mind wandered. Sarah had noticed his distraction over the past few days and had taken to checking on him more frequently, bringing him fresh coffee without being asked, and occasionally sitting with him during slow periods. "You're doing that thing again," Sarah said, sliding into the chair across from him with her own cup of coffee. "What thing?" "That thing where you're physically here but mentally somewhere else entirely. It's like watching someone have a conversation with ghosts." Jake looked up from his laptop, realizing he'd been unconsciously refreshing his Instagram notifications for the 15th time in 10 minutes. "Sorry, I know I've been distracted." 3 more accounts yesterday?" Sarah asked gently. 4, actually. She's getting more creative with the usernames. The latest one was Coffee to Shops Memories. Jake's voice carried a bitter edge. "That one felt like a direct shot at us spending time together." Sarah's expression darkened. "That's definitely crossing a line. She's not just messaging you anymore. She's sending a message about me, about this place." Before Jake could respond, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Meet me at Zilker Park, near the tree we carved our initials in. Come alone. E." Jake's blood went cold. He showed Sarah the message, watching her face shift from concern to something closer to anger. "Absolutely not," she said immediately. "That's textbook manipulation. The reference to the tree, telling you to come alone. The dramatic timing right when you're clearly struggling with her harassment. You're not going. But what if this is my chance to end it?" Jake asked. Even as part of him knew Sarah was right. "Maybe if I talk to her, explain that I've moved on, she'll stop." "Jake?" Sarah leaned forward, her voice firm but caring. "People who respect boundaries don't stalk their exes on social media for weeks before demanding secret meetings. This isn't about closure. It's about control. Jake stared at the message, his thumb hovering over the keyboard. The tree Emma referenced was a massive oak near Barton Springs, where they'd spent countless afternoons during their first year together. It had felt romantic at the time when Emma insisted they carve E plus J forever into the bark, but now the memory felt tainted by everything that came after. "I have to do something," he said finally. "This can't keep going. It's affecting my work, my sleep, my ability to be present here with you." "She's winning." Sarah was quiet for a moment, then pulled out her own phone. "Okay, but not alone, and not on her terms. If you're determined to confront this, we do it smart. What are you thinking? Public place, daytime, with backup nearby. And you set the terms, not her." Sarah was already typing. "What's her actual phone number?" Jake rattled off Emma's number, which he still had memorized despite deleting it from his contacts months ago. Sarah typed quickly, then showed him her message. "This is Jake's friend Sarah. Your digital harassment stops now. If you want to talk to him, it happens at Grind Coffee tomorrow at 2 p.m. Public place, witness present, one conversation to end this, or we involve the police." "Sarah, you don't have to." "Yes, I do." She sent the message before Jake could protest further. "Because this isn't just about you anymore. She's targeting my business, threatening something I've worked years to build, and honestly, I care about you too much to watch you get manipulated back into her orbit." Jake felt a rush of gratitude and something deeper, a recognition that Sarah was willing to stand with him in a way Emma never had. Where Emma created drama and chaos, Sarah offered solutions and support. Emma's response came within minutes. "Who is this bitch? This is between me and Jake. Stay out of it." Sarah showed Jake the message, then typed back, 2 p.m. tomorrow, or we block this number and file a harassment report. Your choice." The next hour passed in tense silence. Jake tried to work but found himself watching Sarah move around the coffee shop, serving customers with her usual warmth while clearly keeping one eye on their table. Other patrons seemed to sense the tension. Conversations were quieter, and several regulars asked Sarah if everything was okay. Finally, at 4:17 p.m., Emma responded, "Fine, but I want to talk to Jake alone." "Not happening," Sarah replied immediately. 2 p.m. I'll be present. This is the offer. 20 minutes later. "Okay, but just this once." Jake looked at Sarah, who was already closing her laptop and gathering her things. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Going home to research restraining order requirements in Travis County," she said matter-of-factly. "Because if tomorrow doesn't go well, that's our next step." That evening, Jake sat on his apartment balcony, watching the Austin skyline light up as darkness fell. The city sounds that usually comforted him, music from the bars below, distant laughter, the occasional siren, felt different tonight. Emma was out there somewhere, preparing for tomorrow's confrontation, and Jake had no idea what version of her would show up. His phone buzzed with one more Instagram notification. This time, it was a comment on a post from 3 weeks ago, a photo he'd taken of Sarah's coffee art, a perfect heart made from steamed milk. The comment, from A Final Warning, Jake, simply read, "She'll never love you like I did." Jake screenshotted it, added it to his evidence folder, and blocked the account. Tomorrow, one way or another, this would end. He just hoped Sarah was right about how to handle it. Wednesday at 1:45 p.m., Jake sat at his usual table in Grind Coffee. His laptop closed and his hands wrapped around a mug of Sarah's strongest blend. The afternoon crowd was lighter than usual, just 2 students with textbooks in the corner and an older man reading a newspaper by the window. Sarah had strategically scheduled the meeting during the slow period, giving them privacy while maintaining the safety of a public space. "You don't have to do this," Jake said for the 3rd time that day, watching Sarah arrange the chairs so she'd have a clear view of both Jake and the door. "We've been over this." Sarah's voice was calm but determined. "She made it about me when she started targeting my business. Besides, you need someone in your corner who can think clearly." Jake nodded, though his stomach churned with anxiety. He'd barely slept the night before, alternating between rehearsing what he wanted to say and imagining worst-case scenarios. Emma had always been unpredictable, but the months of silence followed by weeks of digital harassment made it impossible to know what version of her would walk through the door. At exactly 2 p.m., the bell chimed, and Emma Rodriguez stepped into Grind Coffee. Jake's breath caught. She looked exactly the same. Long dark hair, sharp cheekbones, that confident way of carrying herself that had first attracted him 3 years ago. She wore the faded UT hoodie Marcus had described, dark jeans, and the silver necklace Jake had given her for their first anniversary. Her eyes scanned the room before settling on their table, and Jake saw a flash of the old Emma, vulnerable, uncertain, before her expression hardened. "Jake." She approached their table but remained standing, her gaze flicking dismissively to Sarah. "I asked to talk to you alone, and I told you that wasn't happening," Sarah replied evenly. "Please sit down, Emma." Emma's jaw tightened at the use of her name, clearly not liking that Sarah had the upper hand in knowing who she was while remaining a stranger herself. After a moment's hesitation, she pulled out the chair across from Jake but perched on the edge, as if ready to flee. "So," Emma said, her voice carrying that familiar edge Jake remembered from their worst fights. "This is her, the rebound." "Emma." Jake found his voice, though it came out shakier than he intended. "This isn't about Sarah. This is about you creating fake accounts to harass me online. It needs to stop." "Harass?" Emma's eyes flashed. "I left 3 words on your posts. 3 words about missing someone I spent 3 years of my life with. If that's harassment, then what do you call abandoning someone who loved you?" "I didn't abandon you," Jake said, feeling the familiar guilt creep in despite months of therapy and Sarah's reassurance. "We broke up because you chose your precious career over us," Emma interrupted. "Because you decided some random clients were more important than the person who supported you through everything." Sarah leaned forward slightly. "Emma, that's not what happened, and you know it." Emma's attention snapped to Sarah, her expression turning venomous. "Excuse me, you weren't there. You don't know anything about our relationship." "I know enough," Sarah replied calmly. "I know that healthy people don't stalk their exes. I know that love doesn't involve breaking someone's work equipment or demanding they cut off friends and family." "He told you that?" Emma's voice cracked slightly, and Jake saw the mask slip for a moment. "Those were private moments between us, bad moments that we were working through." "Were we, though?" Jake asked quietly. "Really? Because looking back, it feels like I was the only one trying to work through anything. You were just trying to control everything." Emma's eyes filled with tears, and for a moment Jake saw the girl he'd fallen in love with sophomore year, insecure, passionate, desperately seeking validation. But then she spoke, and the illusion shattered. "I gave you everything, Jake. Everything. I supported your dreams. I believed in you when no one else did. I put your needs ahead of my own for 3 years, and the moment things got difficult, you threw it all away." "Supporting someone doesn't mean isolating them from everyone else," Sarah said. "And believing in someone doesn't mean destroying their work when they don't give you enough attention." Emma stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "This is ridiculous. I came here to talk to Jake, not to be attacked by some stranger who's known him for 5 minutes. "Actually," Jake said, standing as well, "this is exactly what I needed. Because Sarah's right, and hearing you talk just now, I remember why we couldn't work." Emma's face crumpled. "Jake, please. I know I made mistakes, but I've changed. I've been in therapy, I've been working on myself. I just want a chance to show you. By stalking me online? By creating fake accounts? By showing up at places you knew I'd be?" Jake's voice grew stronger. "That's not change, Emma. That's the same controlling behavior that ended our relationship." "I wasn't stalking you," Emma protested, but her voice lacked conviction. I missed you. I missed us." "Then you should have respected my boundaries and stayed blocked," Jake said. "Instead, you chose to violate my privacy and peace of mind for weeks. That's not love, Emma, that's obsession." Emma looked between Jake and Sarah, seeming to realize for the first time that she wasn't going to get what she came for. Her tears had stopped, replaced by a cold anger Jake recognized from their worst fights. "Fine," she said flatly. "I can see you've made your choice. But don't come crawling back when this doesn't work out. When she gets tired of your neuroses and your workaholic tendencies and your inability to prioritize relationships." "That's the difference," Sarah said, standing to face Emma directly. "I don't want to change Jake. I like who he is." Emma laughed bitterly. "Give it time. You'll see." She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "I won't contact you again, Jake. But I want you to know that you're making a mistake. We were good together before everything got complicated. No, Jake said firmly. We were never good together, Emma. I just didn't know what good looked like yet. Emma left without another word, the bell chiming once as the door closed behind her. Jake sank back into his chair, feeling simultaneously drained and liberated. How do you feel? Sarah asked, settling beside him. Like I can breathe again, Jake said honestly, and like I should have done that months ago. Sarah smiled, reaching over to squeeze his hand. Sometimes it takes time to find your voice. Jake's phone buzzed with an Instagram notification. For a moment, the old anxiety spiked, but it was just a legitimate comment from a fellow designer praising his latest work. No fake accounts, no cryptic messages, no digital ghosts from his past. So, Sarah said, ready to focus on the future? Jake looked around Grind Coffee, at the warm lighting, the plants Sarah tended so carefully, the evidence of the life she'd built through determination and creativity. Then he looked at Sarah herself, at the woman who'd stood by him through weeks of harassment without judgment or drama, who'd helped him find his strength without trying to control him. Yeah, he said, meaning it completely. I'm ready. Outside, Austin continued its rhythm, traffic flowing down South Lamar, music drifting from open windows, the sun beginning its descent toward another spectacular Texas sunset. Jake pulled out his phone and posted a photo of his and Sarah's hands intertwined on the coffee shop table, captioning it simply, "Moving forward." The comments that followed were all genuine, all supportive, all from real people who cared about his happiness. Emma's digital haunting was over, and Jake was finally free to build something real,